All right. Hopefully this will pick up on the Discord side.
You might not, but
it's picking up.
Yeah.
All right.
Yo, what up, everyone?
Podcast intro.
Welcome to the CorridorCast, episode 200.
Episode 200. What a time.
200. I'm going to play a song for you guys, an instrumental. Don't worry, I won't sing.
It's okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
I will.
All right, Sam, death metal growling, go.
Hello.
All right, what up?
Jake,
got a
I remember
special
when
guest
you were
today.
trying to
Alright,
learn how to play
special
that
guest.
at the early days of the podcast.
Yeah,
Here we
it's a
go.
And
throwback.
now you did it.
That's why I played it now, because we've come full circle.
Full circle, 200 episodes later.
And not only that, we have the most
200.
live viewers we've ever had on anything on the website right now, watching us do this
Amazing.
podcast live.
Yeah.
Amazing. I love it.
Yeah. We had a whole
Man.
fun hangout while we were troubleshooting.
Yeah,
before
right.
we
Yeah.
actually started the podcast.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah.
200 episodes. Now, the first, 50 or so episodes were a very different format. The podcast itself has gone through a few different eras. We had, the interviewing era.
It
We had the
has.
us just chilling era. And then we had, you were remote, Jake, and so we always had, the headphones in the ears. And now we're
Yep.
back to that again.
Earbuds. Yep. But now we're live.
Now,
And it's
And we're
live.
live.
that's
yeah.
the best, and that's the
Yeah.
best version in my opinion.
I'm really proud of you guys for going live on this. I think that was it's fun. It's a good call, and
I like
it's
the pressure.
yeah. We always talked about it, but we never did it. And once you guys started doing it, I was proud.
I mean, I feel safe with the website subscribers.
Yeah, me
You
too.
know?
Yeah.
I feel like I can, if I really slip up, I feel like everybody on Corridor Digital will forgive me.
Yeah, like they won't clip it or repost it.
Like if you accidentally just start praising Nazis or something, it's like they'll
God.
give you a pass.
We hate, yeah,
Anyways.
it's an accident. It's always an accident.
I don't think that was an accident.
That's cool though.
Yeah.
Well, we're doing some fun stuff over here this week. Jake,
Yeah.
what are you up to?
Tell me about it.
No,
Oh,
no,
man.
no.
You
Tell us
want to
about
hear about
yourself.
my life?
Yeah,
You
tell
want
us
to hear
about
about
your
me?
life. Oh
Well,
yeah.
I mean, we started this podcast recently up again after this
Yeah.
long time off, and some things have changed, and you're back. I thought it might be cool to tell people where you've been and what you've been up to.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we've still been kind of strategizing on things, and it's been awesome to see what you guys have done, since August, and just, kind of the little tweaks that you guys have made to what you're doing and how you're conceptualizing stuff. But kind of around that time is when I sort of switched my main time focus from the Corridor Productions to the Pepperbox TV platform, which
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone on this platform has insight on that or knows about that. But that was kind of a project that we started. Gosh, I feel like it was almost 2 years ago when we initially kind of conceived it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, over the last 18 months, that's when we really got to work in building it. And so what that is, we spent from 2020 to now working on this platform. And, Scott, obviously, and his whole team have just been amazing in building it and working with us to make it so that it's actually functional for how creators would want to use it.
Mm-hmm.
And over that amount of time, we gained all this knowledge of, hey, this is how we use it. This is how we don't use it. This is what works. This is what doesn't. This is what the members enjoy. This is what they don't. We took all that and we said, okay, what if we applied this to sort of a batch of other creators and gave them something similar? And that's what Pepperbox is. And so we started sort of courting creators out here. I guess it was around this time last year. And it's been good. you guys might remember Eli Cuevas from
Might.
way back in the day. Yeah,
Our Batman
that
and our
guy.
Batman quarter Batman surprise.
Yeah,
Jeez.
Eli Corvus used to be my employee. It was
Yeah.
good times back then. No, but
he's
he
an
was
amazing.
he's a visual effects artist too. That was when I first really got to know him. Was working on
Yeah.
what was the
Division.
the Division? Yes.
He's doing all the muzzle flashes. Yeah.
Yes, he's a funny guy. Like he's just a grinder, and I think that's why him and I get along because that's kind of how we operate. And his story is kind of funny. I won't go into all the details, but basically he ended up meeting, I think, like Jimmy and Freddie and Clint at PAX East
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
a decade ago, over a decade ago,
Yeah.
and he was like just coming out of the army, and he was trying to figure out what he wanted to do. And they went up there one year, and then he met them, and then they were like, okay, we'll see you next year. And for a year he just learned how to do visual effects and After Effects and stuff like that. And then they come back up the next year, and he's like, okay, I learned all this stuff. And they're like, cool, you should come down and work on some projects with us. And so he immediately just left and moved down to LA, and then was living there. And that's when he worked with us on The Division.
Yeah.
And then after that he went and worked with Rocket Jump for, I think it was about 2 years or so. And then I don't know if you guys remember specifically, but it came up. We were in the studio one day, and his name came up, and somebody was like, yeah, what happened to that guy? And what he did is he sold a bunch of shirts. He created like a shirt brand. He had gone out to Utah and studied kind of how like JT from Black Rifle had like done his initial merch company. And he basically took that approach and applied it to his own stuff, and then made enough money on merch where he kind of had this sort of war chest for him to kind of go do whatever else he wanted to do, and then left. And we were like sitting in the studio one day, and we go, yeah, what happened to him? And somebody just goes, yeah, I think he sold a bunch of shirts and moved to Utah.
That's crazy.
And then yeah, he worked with BRCC for a number of years, and then they kind of stopped operating out down here, and they moved everything back up to Utah. And that's in 2021 he started his podcast, Unsubscribe. And that's when him and I after that got together and said, hey, maybe we could apply this approach that we're using at Corridor Digital. Maybe other people would be interested in this. And that kind of is the story of how we got to present day. So he's been instrumental in like rounding up all these creators, which, as you guys know, having done all these projects with people,
Yeah.
it's like herding cats, I mean,
Yeah.
because it's hard enough to make it on YouTube, and you kind of have to have this certain approach to everything you do, and you get so just fiercely independent that it's like really hard to get people to go, okay, let's work on this, even just a single video together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's completely self-sufficient and like completely independent.
Yeah,
So you have to,
right.
like,
And so that has its benefits and its burdens, of course. So he's been really influential in getting people to sort of see, I guess, not to speak too corporate, but like a unified vision, and just like, hey, this is what we should do, and kind of getting that into people's heads. And so yeah, we've been working on that. It's been going great. And then we brought a bunch of those guys together for the Tiny Guns shoot, which was a ton of fun, and Sam came out for it, and Derek came out for it. And then actually Derek was just out here last weekend.
I was about to say, I saw Derek was out there recently, like
Yeah,
super recent, I guess.
I've been seeing Derek a lot lately. I went to his bachelor party in
yeah.
in Dallas, and we went hog hunting to no success. I'll talk about that in a second. But then he just came out here, and we filmed another video And it was a good time. We had World War II costumes. We had like all the props. I got the expensive wood stock airsoft guns from
Oh,
Evic.
nice.
Yeah, and yeah, it was great. And I had kind of run through the ringer on how to get World War II costumes done correctly, and I'm glad we. So last time we rented them, that was fine. They were incredibly accurate. And then this time they weren't as accurate, but we had to buy them because we just absolutely destroyed them. I mean, we were doing squibs and blood, and we had guys running around in a river, and we just absolutely trashed those costumes in about 6 hours.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he was just out here, and last weekend I saw him. We went hog hunting. So he's a funny guy. He's engaged, and we had his bachelor party. But I was like, so when's the wedding? And he's like, 2026, maybe.
Oh, that's funny.
Man, I can hear him
And
saying
yeah, so
Really
he's
eager to jump on that bachelor party. It's like, guys, I'm engaged. Bachelor party. It's like, what? Hold on. Like, yeah, like, set a date. Yeah, maybe. Like, if you're gonna hold a bachelor, you don't want to do 2 bachelor parties in rapid succession. It's like bachelor party, and then like a few months later, it's like, so whatever happened? It's like, call it off. But don't worry, my next one's coming up.
when the bachelor party is a highlight.
Yeah, I mean, we had a great time at Sam's bachelor party. I almost died.
That's right.
Yeah. Almost.
But,
Died from fun.
Yeah,
Died from
from fun. Too much fun.
For those who don't know, you got attacked by a wild radar dish on a cruise ship.
Yes, I did.
You were totally not
It
out of
stuck up on
bounds
you.
or anything.
Yeah. You were just minding your own business, reading a book, and a radar dish.
Swooped in and knocked
Yeah,
you.
out of nowhere. Really
Dude, you wouldn't-
insulting.
You wouldn't believe it. Those things are dangerous. They come out of nowhere.
One moment
harming
they're not,
women and
there's
children.
nothing there, and then
Yeah, just
radar dish,
smacking you
boom.
right in your behind, and off you go.
Dude,
Yeah.
they had a nice lawn chair up there. They had like a nice little collection of books that they had set aside with some lemonade. And they said,
very invasive. I hear.
Yeah.
yeah, there's no quarter on those radar dishes.
Yeah. Excuse me. Mind turning the other way? didn't respect you. Oh boy.
So yeah, so Derek, I don't know if you remember, he got engaged. It must have been 2 years ago. He went to
really?
Spain. Do you remember that?
No.
Vaguely.
And he brought
yeah.
back all this port wine.
Yeah,
I don't know
I
if
remember that.
it's legal or not, but
No, he was in
did it
Portugal.
anyway.
That's what he.
Portugal, yeah.
Is that why it's called? Port?
I don't think so. I think it's called Port.
Portugal.
Like you get it in port.
You could be right. Honestly, you could be right.
I don't know.
You keep telling your story. I'm gonna do a little fact checking.
Okay, go ahead. So anyway, he got engaged probably 2 years ago, and then hit me up. It must have been in the spring, and said, "Hey, I'm having my bachelor party." I was like, "Oh, I thought you were already married," because it was 2 years ago. But he's just moving to the beat of his own drummer. I love it.
Yeah.
pretty
And
cool.
so we went out to this place in Dallas, or near Dallas, yeah, it was a fun time. Some of the guys brought out night vision, which was great.
Oh, great. That's a party.
Yeah,
Drinking with night vision is the best.
yes, we weren't drinking while we were hunting, but we were drinking at other.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, I'm just saying wearing night vision while you're drunk and sneaking around is hilarious.
Yeah.
Like you're like,
Yes.
no one deserves
best.
to be that well equipped in your state of mind.
Exactly. It's the best. You're like, if somebody's gonna see me right now, they need thermal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, are you talking like the $40,000 night vision optics, not like the cheap
No.
green?
So the $40,000 ones are the quad tubes.
Oh, yeah.
Like you can get really good ones for like
Single
15.
tubes. Oh, really?
Yeah.
15,000?
You can.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 15 is
Yes.
like it becomes diminishing returns after 15 in my opinion.
Veritasium did a really interesting video on night vision, and it explained why those tube night visions are different than everything else because they're not digital. They're actually truly amplification of light. So there's no frame rate, there's no like resolution to like consider. It's just actual light.
Yeah, it's like the white phosphorus stuff. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wish I knew how that worked. It's crazy.
As far as I understand it, that's what it does. It's just taking in more light. So you have like the 2 tubes, and then you have the 4. The thing that you get with the 4 tubes is you get more peripheral vision, which is why they have them. But it also adds weight. So, and it's more expensive because the cost is in the tube. So when you have 2, obviously that costs less than when you have 4.
Yeah.
Oh God, the last time I was out there, filming with when we filmed with the Black Rifle Coffee guys, like at the end there when they all started whipping out their high tech night vision, like I was so tempted to instead of buying a new car, it was like one of those I could just have sick night vision instead. Because it is so crazy being able to walking around like that.
Yeah.
And
Like
you're just
pitch black.
chilling and having a conversation. You're walking around the forest with beers and stuff. And then you're like, oh, hold on. What does this really look like? And you just take them off and you're in pitch black.
The most
It's
insane,
so cool.
the most insane thing when you have night vision on is looking at the stars.
That is also incredible. Yes.
It is, because all it's doing is just accepting. It's just visualizing more light than your eye can see.
It's
It's
real-time long
Light
exposure.
amplification. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
raising the gain on your image. But
Exactly.
with an actual tube. Yeah.
So one of the guys who was a huge nerd about this stuff, he, as soon as I was like, "Have you ever looked at the stars?" He was like, "Oh, come here, you gotta see these." And he knew, where Andromeda was and where these different systems were, and
Oh yeah,
so
when you can see them easily, it's probably astronomy's way better.
yeah, right, yeah, it's a little easier. But he pointed out, apparently in Orion's belt, or maybe it's the little part that hangs below the belt, there's a cluster. There's a star cluster. And so we looked at that, and then Ren, correct me if I'm wrong, but Andromeda is our sister galaxy. Is that correct?
Yeah, more or less. It's the closest galaxy to the Milky Way,
Right. So we could literally see it.
which is
that's
insane.
cool.
And
You can't really. I don't think you can see it with your bare eyes. You might be able to on a really clear day with no light pollution.
It looks like a star, but when we put on the nods, it looked like, it was so bright. It was wild.
Wow.
And then of course you can see the full Milky Way. We saw Jupiter and Mars in the same picture. Like you didn't have to turn your head; they were next to each other.
That's
Wow.
cool.
Yeah.
Man.
So that was fun, but we didn't get any hogs, unfortunately. We had a great look at some. We were in the blind. It was the first night. It was about 6:35. The sun was getting low, and it was all quiet. And then, we're waiting. And just so people have reference here, if you don't know, feral hogs, they're not from North America. They're from Europe, so they're an invasive species, and they just
Like
to
the
put it
radar
in
dishes.
perspective. Yeah, like the radar dishes, exactly. Those are from space, though. And they'll a breeding female will have 2 litters a year, with 10 to 12 per litter. So she'll have 20 to 25 offspring per year.
Jeez.
And
Yeah, that's crazy.
they're really invasive, and they're considered a pest, because they destroy things, and they take resources away from the native species. So you try to keep their population down, and that's what we were there to do. And so we see this one. We see its little ears pop up through the grass, and then we're like, okay, quiet, because usually when there's one, there's more of them. Sure enough, then 3 other heads come up through the grass, and then this big mama comes through the woods, and about 6 piglets are following her, and they all kind of, once they kind of get the all clear, they come up and they're rooting around and they're starting to get comfortable, and we're like, okay, let them get comfortable. And then as soon as they get comfortable, there was 3 of us in the blind. We're like, we'll all fire at once, and we'll see what we get. So we are raising up our weapons. We're getting sight picture. I have mine here. I'm switching off safety, and as I pull it up, the property nearby us, a large caliber round goes off, and they hear that and they just go boo, and they take off. It was the worst timing. It was the worst possible timing, because we were probably 10 seconds out, and they got away and they didn't come back. And we are like, okay, they're going to come back because that's not that big of a scare. But no, they were gone. Man. And then there was another one, a big boar, but I think he definitely heard us because we were in the blind with this one guy, and he had a cough. And so like every 10 minutes or so, he'd just go,
oh man,
that's one.
I was like, oh man, I guess I got the short straw on this blind draw here. And so that one didn't come by. And then the next morning we went out for a stalk, where you kind of just walk really slowly and quietly through the woods. And we were about 10 minutes into this stalk, and I heard one. And, I motioned to the guy that was nearest to me. He was about 20 yards away. And I motioned where I heard the sound. And I was like, shh. And I heard it grunting and kind of coming towards me. I could hear it kind of walking through the leaves and going, And I could tell it was young because its grunt wasn't very like deep. And so I'm waiting for this thing to come, and I just hear it coming closer and closer to me. So I get my weapon up. I'm waiting for it. And then I see it for about a half a second. And the other piglets that we saw, those ones had a black hide, meaning that they were older. This one, I forgot for that split second in my head that the youngest ones, they actually, when they're born, they have a brown and black and white pattern. It almost looks like a watermelon. And I paused because I thought, wait, is that a javelina, which is a different species? And in the moment that I paused, I already lost picture, and it was gone. And then I asked the guy that owned the place, I said, do you guys have javelinas here? And he's like, no, those are further down where I am. And so, that was that.
Yeah. Sounds exciting.
It was fun. And it was a good group of guys. It was great to see Derek. And man, they have some really pretty country up there, like really diverse grass and wood species, and there was water everywhere. I was like, what, this San Antonio looks like a desert compared to this place.
So since it's our 200th podcast, Jake, I kind of wanted to throw this out to everybody. Like, what have been some of your guys' favorite guests that you guys have had on the podcast?
Oh man. Well, I'll never forget the day that frickin' Logan Paul came by. I wasn't on that podcast, but that was a day. That was a bizarre day.
You did the Flat Earth title sequence. For him,
right? For his Flat Earth documentary. We did the opening.
Yeah, that's super weird in retrospect thinking about that.
Well, the trade was that he comes on our podcast in exchange for us doing that logo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was a good trade.
I do too. It was really interesting meeting him.
Yeah, I think it's it's we have people on unsubscribe that we don't necessarily see eye to eye with, but it's interesting to hear how they approach things, and it's a good way to learn. You see somebody like that, or you get to talk to somebody like that who, for better or for worse, is obviously operating at a very high level within the profession, and getting to hear from them and speak to them is a great learning experience, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and the depth of a person in real life is far more than that you'd ever pick up from any video or writing or picture or whatever,
Yeah.
I also enjoyed the podcast where we had Tom Scott come by. That was a fun one.
Yeah.
I just like Tom Scott. What can I say?
Yeah, you two are cut from the same cloth. That's for sure. He's like your UK cousin.
Yeah. Doing the Spyfall podcasts are fun too.
Oh yeah, I forgot there was like times where we made games instead of or played games instead of just
Those
chatted.
are super fun. In the back of my mind though, like I've been thinking super hard as to like what the Masters and Minions game truly is.
Jake, do you know about Masters and Minions?
Masters and Minions. Well, it's basically it just started like
Sounds
it's
right
it's,
up Sam's alley, though.
I know. Well, but it's got like this like it just rolls off the tongue. Masters and Minions. You know, Dungeons and Dragons. You know, it's natural.
Minions.
It's like how is this not a thing?
Lords
And
and
You
ladies.
want to play Eminem?
it's just really it started just mostly from like Smash Brothers of all things, of like Dean and Matt playing together, and Dean would then like claim Matt as his minion, whether or not they're on an actual team or not. Like it's
It
like
immediately introduces a
minionship.
dynamic when you make somebody your minion.
Yeah,
I'm
like
not
you're-
sure I want to be your minion.
yeah. And so then the other day we finally had our first true game of we all Masters versus Minions in the game, but I think there's something deeper here going on as far as like what is the best version of a Masters and Minions game? Is it like a social game? Is it kind of like not like Resistance or Mafia, where you have people who become your minion and you win once everyone is your minion? You know what I'm saying?
Or the
Like,
minion becomes the master.
you know, or something like that. It's like how it's I feel like there's something there of like maybe a social game like that where the goal is to become the master and everyone else becomes a minion of yours. And
It's like Monopoly. It's like medieval Monopoly.
yeah, exactly. But then it's possible for minions to usurp the master by claiming some of the other lesser minions as their own. You know, there's
Once
still
you
like,
get enough, you can form an army and then face off against the other master.
so I don't have the rules figured out completely because I feel like you could also make it into a more complex game than
You need
just like a
secret
social.
bloodlines too, so later on it's revealed that the minion has master's blood.
Yeah, if you have master's blood, then you can make a claim.
Yes.
You know, because I feel like that's the best way to. I feel like it is. You want this dynamic of like a goofy like faux social dynamic where it's not about board games or pieces, but it's that purely social aspect, because Masters and Minions that is a social construct within itself, so why not have it be a social game? You know, it's not a tactical game.
Yeah.
I think there's something there.
You know, there's there's I don't think
triggered
that
my
there's
master.
any.
My master's bloodline has been triggered. I'm ascending.
I don't think that there's any.
Yeah, feudalism simulator. Oh god.
I don't think there's any like IP rights to the actual particular rules of Dungeons and Dragons.
That's true, actually. Yeah. 'cause you
There's
can't-
certain
you can't count that
characters and
system.
like subworlds and things
yeah,
like that.
totally.
But overall, yeah.
Oh, I have a news story for you guys. I want to hear your opinion on this, Jake, since it involves some legalese.
Oh,
So,
okay, great.
The rights owners of Blade Runner 2049 sued Tesla for their We Robot event because Tesla made AI generated images of their cars, basically just, Midjourney prompted their cars, and they are suing Tesla because Tesla prompted their AI generated art to look like Blade Runner 2049.
In what manner did Tesla use these images?
As promotion, but it was basically from like Midjourney or Flux. They're just saying
Right.
that you intentionally gave this the style of Blade Runner 2049 and may have used it in your prompts for these images. Therefore, we are suing you.
And then apparently at the event, Elon Musk does specifically reference Blade Runner.
Yeah.
He did specifically
Okay.
reference Blade Runner.
Did he reference Blade Runner 2049 or just Blade Runner?
I'm not totally sure. Probably 2049, but I read a quick article about it and I remember that detail.
Yeah. And now the pictures are not from Blade Runner 2049. Let us be clear. They are just AI prompted, probably Flux, because that's what they use for Twitter. Flux image of a car to look like a car from Blade Runner 2049.
It all depends. I mean, it's a little convoluted because it's new technology, but the ultimate question is whether or not it's a derivative work. That's really the only question. If it's not a derivative work, if it's something wholly original, then it's fair use, and if it's a derivative work, then they owe, or Blade Runner can say you can't use those.
So is just looking like something a derivative work?
No, not necessarily. It has to do with whether it strikes at the heart of the matter, which is like all these sort of ambiguous terms that judges came up with. Because again, there's no the copyrights that you own in a work are written down, but the way that those are interpreted is not. So it's all just done through case law. So there's just, there's like 150 years now of case law. I mean, there's even more than that. It goes back all the way to the Constitution. But yeah, it's definitely that's the question. Is like, is it a derivative work? And it's kind of sounds like it is, to be frank, because it doesn't sound like they did anything else with the vehicles other than say, hey, we want promotional material from, well, yeah, we want promotional material that we can say looks like Blade Runner 2049. And so AI prompt, most likely based on those images, give us those images back. That seems like pretty directly derivative if you're not doing anything else with it.
But what
But
if you
that's just my
approached,
opinion.
just a question though, what if you approached like an artist and you said, give me renders of my car that look like Blade Runner 2049? Like if that was in your direct email thread, do you think Blade Runner rights holders could come after you for that too?
Well, it's the same, isn't it the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is. I'm just wondering, would that still be a legal issue there too? Would they be like, no, you directly referenced us? But so yeah, I guess looking
It's
like
not necessarily whether you directly reference, like, I mean, that's important contextually, I guess, but it's more about whether you didn't add any creativity to it.
Mm.
Or whether the creativity that you did add, more specifically, the creativity that you did add is just directly from the same thing.
That
Like
makes
if you
sense.
took Blade Runner 2049 cars and you put them in, like a predator scene, or like a jungle scene, and you changed the context and like you gave the cars character voices and like you did all this other stuff, that would probably be considered fair use. But if you just took the images, it's like you're not going far enough.
Yeah. Okay, interesting.
But I'd have to see it. I don't know all the facts, but that
Yeah.
seems like, just based on what you told me, that's what it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is I feel like intention is like a big, yeah. It's just like my gut feeling is intention seems to play like a big role in a lot of these situations too, where it's like, sure, there is the AI element of like who owns copyright and stuff like that, but when you are explicitly stating that like, hey, we want to integrate our products with Blade Runner. It's like we like are that and that was like, I feel like a big part of this. It's not just like, hey, that kind of looks like this other like film property.
Right.
It's like no, like we're literally saying our cars are in this property. Like, what if our cars were in this property at an event and we display pictures of it? And it's like, hold on, well, like, it doesn't matter how you created the images anymore at this point. The point is that now you're specifically showing images of your vehicles in this property, and whether it's like, you're just like for fun or like official or not.
They were showing images of Teslas in Blade Runner.
No, it's just like
that-
vibe. It was like basically it looked like, pictures of like a Tesla car in a world that looks like a Blade Runner 2049 world.
And
but
then-
it was just aesthetically matching. It wasn't like the actual frame.
Yeah,
from
and then as
stuff.
part of the thing, they say, what if our cars were in Blade Runner? As they're showing the pictures.
Yeah.
They're saying...
Yeah.
They're like...
That's kind of right on the line. I mean, if there is a line, you found it.
Yeah.
Jake, actually, I have
Yeah.
another question for you, unrelated to Tesla and AI.
Yeah, let's go. Let's get
images.
all the legal counseling
So
going here.
right now, everybody I talk to in LA who is in the traditional side of the business is like, oof, it's rough. And, you
What's
look
rough?
at
That,
the
like-
the
Yeah.
traditional industry, entertainment industry.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, there's still shoots happening. Like, stuff is still getting made, but, like, not nearly on the same level as it was a few years ago. There's a lot of tech company money in the entertainment. Entertainment's traditionally not nearly as big as tech when it comes to money. So everything's really wonky right now. There's a lot of people out of work. Now that's in the traditional industry, because the digital side of this, YouTube, for example, is thriving, right? There's a lot of people making a living on YouTube these days. There's a lot of independent creators and all that kind of stuff. So right now, you've basically been launching another like entertainment avenue, another entertainment platform with Pepperbox. It's very similar to CorridorDigital.com here, both different creators. But you've been actively growing a new platform of distribution, and like making stuff at the same time when a whole like side of the industry is struggling to make stuff and struggling to find distribution. And I was wondering, what's that experience been like? Is it working? Are you feeling any of that pressure that the other side of the industry is feeling? If not, why?
Fortunately, we're not. We're not feeling a lot of that pressure. I'm hearing, tales here and there. People are reaching out to me that are more like on the traditional side, and we talk, and they kind of give me that picture. I don't have firsthand experience with that, so it's all secondhand information. But fortunately, we're not really feeling that. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that, but the core ones are primarily one, YouTube pays, and I don't mean to sound like ungrateful here, but like YouTube pays basically nilch when it comes to what it costs to produce things that you see from traditional media.
Right.
That's just a fact. So we've been sort of forced into this way of production that it has a certain scale in order to make it all work at the end of the day. And we've spent the last 15 years like honing that. And so because of that, we just approach the way we film things differently. We approach the conceptualization for different shows differently, all sort of within this pay scale and this monetary scale that's just much lower than you would expect if you were on a studio television show, for example. So that's, I think, the main reason why we haven't had much of that pressure. And then the second reason is like we're not trying to do too much with the Pepperbox platform. We're trying to find creators who already have an established show, who are doing that as a profession, and we're trying to come in alongside them and sort of just boost everything that they're doing, both for them and for their fans. And so, it's a similar format to some of the things we do on Corridor Digital. It's like, hey, let's offer exclusive things you can't get on YouTube. Let's offer no ads and no brand integrations. If we have the opportunity to do extra minutes, let's do that. And then, of course, having a lot of these guys be in the firearms space, there's certain things that they can't show on YouTube. So there's a natural sort of uncensored value that the platform has, where people say they want to see something full auto, or they want to see how a weapon is built. They can see that, and the creator can monetize that on Pepperbox when they wouldn't be able to show or monetize that on YouTube. You could show it on YouTube.
I forgot that showing full auto weapons on YouTube demonetizes your video.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And there's certain things that you get strikes for now. Like, for example, we are releasing a video that's a BTS of the production we just did over the weekend. That's going to have a whole segment of us making squibs and testing them. You can't show that on YouTube. Nico, I think you did a little bit of that in a previous production, maybe like 2 months ago.
You can't show people
like, here's the ingredients, and then you turn around. So with your fingers, come back and now it's done.
Exactly. So, but we can actually show us taking the ingredients, packaging them, the exact way to make a squib, how to make it testing it, you know, playing with the amount of powder and things like that you put in there. I mean, technically that's, you know, bomb making. Technically, it's legal before the what's the bureau that manages that? There's some federal bureau, but anyways,
ATF?
yeah, maybe it is that one. But anyway, it's considered to be, that's the one that they allow for like people who do fireworks shows and stuff like that. That's why you can buy like electronic wicks online and things like that, because those are considered, you know, low level things. But I mean, just to put it frankly, like the same stuff is used by, you know, like IEDs and like terrorist bombs, things like that. They're just doing it at like a completely dangerous scale, obviously.
Wait, hold on. There's a guy who gets around this by rapping about it. Faceless Mage says there's a guy who raps how to steal credit cards. Is that how we monetize this kind of stuff?
Different kind of dropping bombs.
So there's a different, so there's something that kind of the firearms guys are going through right now. And I think that the singer is probably doing the same thing. If it's in a sort of work of art, or like a cinematic, then it's okay. But if it's a bizarre thing, and I understand where YouTube's coming from. They're trying to say, you know, hey, like let's just, there's so many people on this platform. It's a global platform. Like we're trying to, you know, not have too many crazy things going on it. And YouTube's dealt with this its whole life. I think they're going a little too far here. I definitely think that. But like you put it in this context, okay? We were filming a cinematic intro to a video over the weekend. We had a fully automatic rifle that we used in insert shots for that cinematic. We're able to show that fully automatic rifle being fired in the cinematic and monetize that. But then you can't take that same rifle to a gun range by a person who's experienced in, you know, this tool and show people how to safely use it and why it operates the way that it does. You can't.
That's kind of
monetize
interesting.
that.
So you can glorify it and romanticize it, but you can't.
You can't show the real thing.
You can't actually embrace the reality of it.
That's so, I mean, that's a little bit the internet in a nutshell.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it's like it's kind of a cultural thing. Like we're so used to seeing violence in movies and TV shows and things like that, that culturally it's just kind of there. And so we just kind of accept that. I mean, it's the same thing as like movie ratings.
It's funny.
You know, movie ratings, they don't have like a book and they're like, okay, here are the 1,700 things that make a movie PG-13. No, they take a bunch of people who have time to go to a matinee review session of a movie that's not out yet in the middle of the day. So who you getting? You're getting like suburban stay-at-home parents, you know, and then they're sitting down, or like retired folk, and then they're going, they're like, would you rate this PG-13 or would you rate this R, or would it be, you know, where are you at with this? And then they kind of have these study groups, these focus groups, and then they submit that rating to the MPAA, and then the MPAA looks at it and they go, okay, yeah, more or less, let's give it this rating. And that's kind of what YouTube is doing here. But yeah, it's unfortunate because it restricts, I think, the wealth of information that is out there for useful purposes. Like, you know, whether we like it or not, you know, YouTube, Google, etc. I mean, these are global platforms that have an effective monopoly on distribution of information. And so, you know, there's that argument: should they be treated like a private company, or should they be treated like a public square? Mm-hmm. And, you know,
I think we're probably pretty, everyone at this point is pretty set on the private company thing. I feel like, right? It's like, I feel like that, like, I think the conversation feels like it's kind of over at this point. Like the last chance we had to have that conversation was with Twitter, and Elon Musk bought it, and he's like, not a public square. I own it. Here's the rules. You know, it's like, I feel like that was like the last thing. And with everyone else, it's like everyone else has already treated them as like public companies, private companies, because of like, we're dealing with like the ins and outs of media and copyright and DMCA and stuff like that. And like all these pre-existing laws that clearly already affect it. You know?
I think it's healthy for people to not like kid themselves into thinking that like a big corporation is like their public utility. It's like no.
Well, it's because it's kind of hard.
They're trying to make money off
It's,
you.
it's hard to just like roll into that situation and be like, hey guys, so this multi-billion empire you made, it's part of the government now. So it's like,
Well, not only that, but also like treating that corporation as if it's a public resource, like thinking that they're working in your public interest when it's really more an exchange of value back and forth.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I see what you guys are saying, but I think there's valid arguments on the other side. Like, just to use the example of like a utility company, a lot of them are cooperatives where, private equity gets together and they say, hey, we're going to provide power to this region. I mean, this is what Lyndon Johnson did with the Pedernales Electrical Corporation or Cooperative. Oh, can't hear me.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Can't hear Jake. I can hear you on Discord just fine.
What happened?
mime time.
Dude, you guys, the
My-
point Jake was making right now was so good. The points were so salient. Like, it's really too bad that nobody else heard it.
Audio's
I'm
back.
I think
Okay.
So I'll just what I was saying is I think there's good arguments on both sides.
Mhm.
And just to use the example of the utility company. So Lyndon Johnson did this thing out here in Central Texas when he was president, where they got together private equity to build the Pedernales Electrical Cooperative.
Huh.
And we call it the PEC. The PEC provides power, for example, to my house. And they got together. They built dams. They built infrastructure. They said, hey, this is how many people and houses we'll be able to provide for. They provide power to those people, and then in exchange, people pay them for that service. So it's a cooperative in the sense that like everybody that's distributed power is paying into it, and if they have like a dividend, they give it back, and it comes off your bill and all that stuff. But I guess the point is like it's not quite as cut and dry. Like I think you get to the argument being you get to a point where it's the only source of information or the key source of information, and then that becomes something different.
Yeah,
And
totally.
I think the reason why nothing's been done about it, frankly, primarily comes down to the corporations have more weight to throw around than the politicians can lift.
True.
And so they basically go, look, I mean, we have the Sherman Antitrust Act for things like this. There are like legitimate sort of tools within the government. And that isn't to say that if it becomes a public square, then now it needs to be regulated by the government, because that's something else. But it's just this idea of, and they're trying to walk that line. I get it, because they want to be as broad as possible with the distribution of their data, well as looking as small as possible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Well, they also,
don't
like,
want to appear like a
you-
giant corporation. no
YouTube
matter-
hasn't like exactly screwed it up to the point where somebody feels like they need to really step in and make something happen also. Because like, I mean, yeah. Trying to make YouTube a public utility would bring a whole boatload of problems in and of itself. Just trying to actually run it like a utility versus like the actual efficiency you do get from an actual business.
I'll put it like this. I think we're in a different age now. And if
Yeah.
we don't kind of acknowledge, like we have all this precedent, we have all this history of how things have been done and how we can go about things. Well, when we entered the digital age, we entered a new phase for the nation and the world.
Mhm.
And we haven't quite responded to that appropriately yet. And I think people think this has been going on forever. The digital age has only really been going on for 25, 30 years. And so that's a relatively short amount of time when you think about how things have changed in the past. And so I think maybe when like our kids' generation comes up, I'm hoping that there'll be some more people have a much better understanding of like what the impacts are and what the utility value is to society, and we'll hopefully be able to make better decisions. That's my hope.
Mhm.
But right now, I think it's just because we're still coming into this era, and it's still relatively a baby. I mean, it's you know, it's like a preteen at this point. It's
Mhm.
and it's rooting around and causing trouble, but you know, I don't know. That's my thought on it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. Like I feel like the only like substantial legislation that I think that's been passed is it happened in California recently. It's no phones in schools.
Huh.
It's like
Nice.
straight up the law. If you are
Yeah.
a student in a California public school,
Huh.
you are not allowed to have your phone in the
That's
classroom.
a really good idea. 'Cause
Like-
the phone
That's
is just
great.
really the portal for companies to try to get your
Like
attention.
it's the only thing where it's like, look, okay, AI, social media, like whatever. Like, look, okay, hold on. Let's just boil it down to one real simple, easy to deal with thing over the only people we have control over, which is minors, specifically students in a public school system. It's like the only
right.
people who have to listen to us that we can. Yeah. So I mean,
Become ungovernable, people. Become
Yeah.
ungovernable.
so it's, and I'm like, you know what? Like I get it. Like it's a massive issue for teachers dealing with that. And like this,
Yeah.
kids are distracted, blah blah blah. So it's like it's the only thing where I feel like it's here's the first step of like, all right, are we making a decision on how this technology can be used? You know, it's like
Right.
there we go. That's one step in a direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think the more intel we get, and that's the beauty of the United States. Like the whole point of it is to have these little petri dishes where you can experiment with different policies and different ways of going about things, and then you can kind of compare notes and go, okay, that's working over there, that's not working there, that's vice versa, and you can therefore make better decisions over time. At least that's the idea.
Mhm.
So hopefully, we'll get better at that with this type of technology. But I just think, yeah, we're still super young into this, and you know, our generation, the millennial generation, is like the first ones who it's kind of by the time we're 60, you know, it's kind of we're gonna have a window from about now to then to kind of set a course, and hopefully we'll be able to do that. If we can do that, then we've succeeded. Our generation has succeeded.
Yeah. I
I
can't remember
think.
if somebody said this in the last podcast, but somebody was saying that like when our kids are like our age, they're gonna look back at social media and be like, that was the tobacco of like my parents' generation. Or, like they thought it was okay for kids to have phones and like have Instagram accounts. Like, no, I like
It definitely feels like that,
it's like
doesn't it?
Yeah, Sam Berg in the comments, you know, says like at this point everyone is on social media platforms, but they're so exploitative that it's hurting the entire public. And that's
Right.
true.
If
Like
you're
this-
not paying for the product, you are the product.
yeah, and social media platforms are very exploitative and like very destructive in many ways. So
Yeah, that's known. That's known at this point. I mean, they've done there's psychological tests that
Yeah,
say, "Oh, well,
it's
if
known.
we-
We're just like, oh well, I can feel whatever. Everybody can sign up. Who cares?
retention."
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
yeah, it's
see.
bizarre, man.
Yeah,
It's a bizarre
Jalen,
time.
Rich called it out. Jalen was talking about it. Yeah, or sorry, Faceless.
But
Yeah,
but yeah, just to kind of get back to the previous topic that kind of led into this, just about, you know, I think what if we're feeling any of the contraction within, you know, the traditional industry right now, no, but you know, we'll see how it goes. And Nico, one note I noted down when you were saying earlier, like there are way more people than there have ever been making a living off of social media.
yeah,
But in the process of trying to find creators within particular spaces, I've noticed that there's actually a lot less than you might think.
Mm.
I mean, there are several different sort of subgenres on YouTube, right? You have like your social experiments, you've got your makeup, you've got your whatever it might be, your automotive, you know, whatever. Well, within each of those, like I'll just give you one on like the automotive channels. I've been looking into that as like a genre that we could potentially bring onto Pepperbox, and I've been talking with a lot of the guys that are doing that space on YouTube, and um, I honestly I think there's only about a dozen that have sort of like global name recognition within that subgenre. Like anybody who's into cars is going to know about this channel, like that type of thing. I think there's less than a dozen on YouTube. And again, I'm restricting this to like the English speaking world and all that. But it's what I've found is in each of these subgenres, there's actually far fewer than you think. I mean, there's a lot of people doing it. Some of them, maybe they have a second job. Some of them, maybe they're just starting out and their videos are doing really well, which is great. But the guys who have sort of perfected it as a profession, yeah, maybe 2 handfuls. And I think that seems to be true across each genre.
Gotcha.
Huh. So it's just it's more of a smattering than it would seem to appear.
Yeah. Like you look at YouTube and you go, wow, there's like however many thousands of channels with more than 1 million subs. It's probably, I don't know how many it is at this point, probably dozens of thousands.
I think it's around a dozen.
Even
dozens.
Yeah. But even within that, there's only going to be so many that are doing it, where they're releasing once a week or twice a week, or, they sort of have that professional presentation to their audience and people know what they're going to get. And they're generating enough money from that venture to make a living off of it so that they can continue to provide that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing, because at Corridor, we've got our niche, and from the outside looking in, it seems like, oh, we're just a small fish in a very big pond. But yeah, there's really not that many still, even 15 years into this whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, sweet guys. I actually have to head out here in a second to film a Gaussian splat with the sun is at the right position.
Oh man,
Gaussian. Are you committing?
Sam.
Are we committing to Gaussian? Because we can make Gaussian
Gaussian.
happen if we push hard enough. We have enough clout on the internet.
Gaussians?
Because
Gaussian.
Gaussian is apparently how it's Gauss
Gaussian.
rifle.
Gauss.
Yeah.
Gauss rifle? Gauss
Gauss.
rifle.
Gaussian.
Well, you don't
Gaussian.
put 2 S's like that with an I after it. SI is a sh.
yeah, but it's a name.
Gauge.
The real question is, how's it pronounced in the native tongue?
Gaussian.
Oh,
Yeah, but
also,
Gaussian.
as Americans, it's our obligation to mispronounce things. So I
That's
kind of
true.
feel like,
which
Okay,
might
hold
means
on,
that we should
hold
be
on.
pronouncing
I
it
do have enough
Gaussian.
time to have.
Also, I just want to throw out there, port wine is named after the city of Porto, which is in Portugal. So apparently they really like their port word in Portugal. It's a big branding thing
Wow.
for them.
Okay, I didn't know
Full
that.
circle.
I guess that's why you got it in Portugal.
Yeah.
The video Sam's working on right now is super dope, and I can't wait to see the.
Yeah.
Gaussian? Ugh.
It sounds wrong,
what we
bro.
said.
Gaussian.
I love how you dropped your phone in disgust.
Ugh.
Gross.
Gaussian. It's Gaussian.
Let's go
Yeah.
with Gaussian,
Gaussian.
guys. Let's go with Gaussian.
It's
Yeah.
okay, but like you
Is
said,
it Porsche
remember,
or
like,
Porsche?
but look at the
Porsche.
word Gaussian.
Porsche's
It's-
so
the
weird.
reason it's Gaussian.
It's a name. It's pronounced Porsche.
Remove the G and the A and put an R there. What does that sound?
Russian.
Yes.
Yeah, but English
Gaussian.
language doesn't follow rules.
It's also a name, so it's immune to rules.
Look, Ren made it okay for us
Whose
to
name is it?
mispronounce
We'll
things.
kill them. It's my name now. They're my minion, and I will
Dude,
tell them how to pronounce their
Jan
name.
has the best example of this. What if Tolkien was like, he came back one day and he's just alive suddenly, and the only thing he says is it's pronounced Jandalf, and then dies.
Jandalf.
It's pronounced Jandalf and he dies. Would that make Lord of the Rings less popular? Probably.
Changed canon forever with one sentence.
Jandalf. No, it's pronounced Gimli.
Jimmy.
Jandalf is my favorite
It's
though.
Gimli and Jandalf.
Jandalf.
Jandalf the Dre.
And Jolum.
Oh, that's so funny. I was just imagining that scene where he says, "You shall not pass," and then he turns to the camera and he goes like, "That sounded better in my head." Like
Jandalf.
the crappy one-liners
Oh,
in
yeah.
Lord of the Rings.
He's on the bridge and the Balrog comes up behind him. He's like, he's right behind me, isn't he? God, we should make a crappy version. Is there a way we can make crappy versions of good movies?
Crabby versions of good movies.
We just, yeah,
That's
turn
so
into,
good.
like formulaic.
It's
I don't
so
know.
good.
We have that rule: no purposely bad things.
Except for that, which is hilarious. It's purposely hilarious.
Yeah.
I dipped into a little VR movie session that you guys know who Steve Zargoza is?
Yeah.
He does a little VR movie session once in a while. and I
Really? Well, what is
got
it like?
invited.
Like you guys are all watching a movie in
In
VR
big
together?
screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I follow.
It's kind of weird. I've never done it before. I popped in, and you pop into a theater, and you turn around. There's like a bunch of people. There's like 10 people. Like, oh, like I'm in a theater with people, and it's weird because you're in VR, but it feels like you're in a theater with people because it's all real people. And then you turn around, there's like something playing on the screen. But we pulled up Tron. We just started using like in the Smurfs, they use Smurf to describe everything they do.
Yeah.
We just did that with Tron while we were watching the movie Tron, and it made the movie way better.
Yeah.
Where it's just like,
What do you mean?
Tron this.
Oh.
You Tron like they do.
Sounds about right. But unfortunately, guys, I do really have to do this. I was like, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to stay for the Q&A.
It's
Because
cool. Well,
once again, because the sun is going into the same position,
Yeah, you should go do it.
what I'm doing is I have a splat that is really good that I spent like 20-30 minutes getting like 2 weeks ago, and I actually have to add to the data set
oh, nice.
as well as film a shot there. So it's important that I catch it at the right moment to make sure it all kind of blends.
Yeah,
Are you compensating for the change in the sun's angle over the last 2
Absolutely
weeks?
not. No.
Well, then all you got to do is just
It's
like
only
either
like 2 weeks.
wait 10 minutes or go 10 minutes early.
I'll flip a coin. Let's see which one it is.
You go do what you need to do, Sam.
What do you think?
We have Jake
Well,
here.
if
He
it's
can
getting
do the
darker
after
every
show
day,
with
so
us.
you'd have to go
10 minutes
earlier.
No,
10
go
minutes
get
earlier.
it, Sam.
Well, that means I'm
go
10
get
minutes
it.
later than
Dude,
I
this-
thought I was.
You guys are getting the real deal behind the scenes on Corridor.
This is a
what
real
it's like
deal,
when you
and I
make
can't. Yeah, I can't wait to show you
videos.
guys this video. Although honestly, if you join me for these weekly live streams, which are not happening this week, but yeah, join in for those
deep dives.
the deep dives. We're calling them the show's actually called Deep Dives. It's branded as weekly live stream though. Anyways, yeah, you'll get all that there. But guys, Jake, it's been good casting,
Yeah.
potting,
Awesome catching up, Sam. Good potting. Good luck with your Gaussian splats.
Gaussian. Ugh. All right, guys.
All right,
I
go
know
do it. See
you're
ya.
gonna slam dunk
All right,
the rest of this podcast.
Slam dunking, baby.
All right. Well, I'm going to wrap up the YouTube podcast here, the Spotify podcast, the Apple iPod podcast, which is crazy. That's why it's called a
Apple iPod?
podcast. You know that's why it's called a podcast, right?
Because of your iPods.
Because of the iPods, which is
Mhm.
weird. It's crazy.
Old school.
But anyways, to everyone listening who's not here on the live stream, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure talking into your ears for the past hour. And consider joining us on CorridorDigital.com if you would like to join us for the live streams. So long, everybody.
And 3, 2, 1.